Did you? Kim Rogers.
Okay, before we call the meeting to order, we're going to have Chris Brokaw is going to do an update for the pension.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Very brief statement. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure working with the board. Last year, the fund met all of its long-term objectives, and just to go through what those objectives are within the investment policy, it's to achieve a 7% long-term. Might be better without it. 7%.
We need it because it's on TV.
Yeah, you can
It's
go
going
away
out
a little bit.
Okay.
That's no problem.
There's a bit of an echo. Sorry. To achieve a 7% long-term rate of return on the portfolio, which is the plan's actuarial rate. The other one is to provide payment for the benefit obligations and expenses of the plan in perpetuity. The third one is to achieve a rate of return after adjusting for inflation sufficient to preserve the purchasing power of the plan assets. The fourth is to maintain a prudent level of risk that allows the balances to grow over time and also preserves the capital in the plan. And finally, to achieve a long-term investment result that compares favorably to similar invested pension plans. So, as I mentioned, the plan met those goals. In 2024, it returned 11.47%. It's invested in a diversified investment programs of stocks, bonds, other asset classes. Relative to market-based benchmarks, indices, it outperformed, and it also outperformed a peer group of other public plans, ranking in the top 10%. So over the longer term, so looking beyond 2024, over the past 5 years, the fund returned 8.21%. The plan assets as of December 31st, 2024 were $31.8 million. So 2024 was a good year for the plan, long-term, meeting its goals. So I'm happy to give you that update today, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from council?
No questions other than we just went through an in-depth review of the annual report that Chris just presented, and I would say the committee's satisfied with how we're performing. There's some variations of some action plans that were taken out of that, but all in all, good performance.
Yeah. Great news. Thank you.
Right.
Question,
Yes, sir.
Any crypto?
The answer is no.
And there will not be any crypto?
That is correct.
All right.
Yeah, I got that question from another client, and I said, well, I'll answer it shortly and simply. Do you know anyone who's lost money in crypto? I think that answers the question. There's plenty of people out there, but no one talks about it. It's like gamblers at a casino. You only hear about the winners.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone from? Nope. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark and Larry.
All right. I'm going to call the February 5th, 2025 regular voting meeting of council to order. We're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we can do roll call, please.
Mrs. Ling,
Present.
Mr. Olszewski, Mr. Dice, Mr. Diakopoulos,
Here.
Mr. McKenna,
Here.
Mr. Stepanovich,
Here.
Mr. Lemak,
Here.
Mayor Simon.
Here.
All right, next up, the consent calendar items for approval of the January 21st, 24 minutes. Can I get a motion for that?
Motion to approve the January 21st, 2024 minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Carl and Jamie.
Unlisted amount.
What's that?
Unlisted.
Oh, did I skip that? Yep, I did. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any unlisted amendments that we have today?
None for this evening.
Nothing, Mike? All right, thank you. Sorry, I skipped over that one. Comments by Mayor Simon.
Thanks, Mr. McKenna. We do have a few announcements tonight. First of all, ARP Tax Prep Services appointments are required in advance. Call 724-374-8176. If no answer, leave a message. There is no walk-up service for this at all. It's at the Murraysville Community Center, as you well know, on Carson Avenue. The dates are February 21st, February 28th, March 14th, March 28th, and April 11th. Next, we have another glass recycling pop-up collection event Saturday, March 15th, Veterans Field parking lot, right up here next to the municipal building at 4200 Sardis Road, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our residents are also encouraged to support the Loaves and Fishes Emergency Food Pantry by donating non-perishable food items. Food pantry volunteers will be at the pavilion accepting drive-through donations during the same hours. The sponsors of this are the municipality of Murraysville and Republic Services. The curbside leaf collection, this will be the schedule for the fall, and I think we're pretty much out of that. That's done. I don't know why that popped back up again. Blood donations. Flurry of Hope Red Cross Blood Drive, Wednesday, February 19th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Murraysville Community Center. Those who donate blood, platelets, or AB Elite Plaza by January 27th of February will receive a $15 e-card to a merchant of choice. Next, we have a sad note here. The municipality of Murraysville mourns the loss of a dedicated fireman, volunteer, and friend, Ronnie DeFalco. Ronnie served the White Valley Volunteer Fire Department as a volunteer fireman for 55 years. Wow. We thank Ronnie and his family for his many years of service and sacrifice. He will be missed by all. On a little bit of a positive note, I have a couple tidbits from the school. The wrestling team has moved forward to the PIAA championships, and the girls basketball team is 11-0 in conference play, and that's all that was passed on to me. Thank you. That completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Comments by Chief Administrator Mike, anything?
Yes, just one item. I think some members of the community may be aware, but we are having some issues with the traffic signals on Route 22. Some may have noticed it over the last couple months. It's gotten progressively worse here over the last week or so. We do have our staff working on a solution. We were waiting for PennDOT to take a look at things. They did that. It turns out that we need a part to help get this system back and synchronized. So for those folks in the community that are traveling on 22, we are aware that there are some difficulties with the way that the signals are timed and the way that the lights are changing. Once we get that part in and we get it fixed, hopefully that will bring the system back into synchronization as you go up and down the highway and make your different turns on and off of Route 22. So we are aware of the issue and we're working on a fix for it now.
Mike, is that a long term of getting the part? Or do we know any time frame?
No, we don't have an exact time frame. It's just a network switch. It shouldn't be terribly difficult, but leading up until now, we thought the issue was with the modem. And the way the system is designed, some parts of that system are owned by PennDOT, some parts are owned by the municipality. So we were waiting for the fix on the modem, which was a PennDOT side. Once they came in and did that, they recognized that there was another issue with the network switch there in one of the cabinets. So the other signals altogether. So it should be a short time frame, but we don't have an exact time on it.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, with community input. Do we have anyone? Michelle Kish.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Michelle Kish, I'm president of the Franklin Regional Athletic Association. Here today regarding,
Michelle, can you give your address to?
oh, sorry, 5149 Trillium Drive, Export. I'm here today on behalf of Franklin Regional Athletic Association, on the board, and here regarding the potential fee increase for field reservations. I noticed it in the paper, talked to a couple of council members about, the discussion. First and foremost, what I'd ask that we at least tabled the discussion or like the change. We have already opened our registration for spring baseball and softball, and would have no way of passing along a fee increase to our participants at this point. Registration is open from February 1st until March 1st, and we already have a significant number of registrants have paid, so we have no way of going back and assessing an additional fee to them to pass along a fee increase. But equally important is I think this opens the door for discussion about renovation of the fields. Fields across Murraysville are in dire need of more significant maintenance and renovation. Bill and his team do a phenomenal job in the routine maintenance, the grass cutting and like the field prep in the beginning of the season. But many of these fields have severe drainage issues. MCP, Chambers, especially Bear Hollow has its share, Fedora. And if you compare our fields to other communities, we don't have the drainage that we need. We have a lot of cancellations of games and practices, and our organization has to make significant financial investment in materials just to make fields playable after it rains. We spend thousands in field dry, and there's significant wear and tear on our equipment and demand from our volunteers to be able to and so forth, just to get the fields playable. This has direct impact on the kids. When the fields aren't playable, we're canceling practices, and we want the kids to be out there. So I ask that the council have a more thorough discussion about what can be done to invest in the fields. Generally, each of the fields needs to be dug up about 5 to 6 inches, have new drainage pipes put in, new overlayment put in, and then routine maintenance of clearing out the drainage pipes on an annual basis at least. That will significantly help our ability to play consistently. Communities such as PT, they have this in place. It could rain here in PT the exact same amount. They will be playing just after that rain, and we will not. So the other thing that I'd like to bring up is I understand Murraysville has received the $1.5 million from the fracking that's going underneath MCP, and I understand that was to be earmarked for investment in the parks. I ask, where is that investment going to be made and when, and ask that consideration in the fields be discussed, and lights. Big thing that we have that's different than most surrounding community is we do not have any lighted ball fields. That is especially impactful in the fall when we can't start games until 6. That's when our parents, our volunteers can get there after work. And by October, we're losing daylight, and we're lucky to get 4 innings in for many of our kids. Again, communities nearby, they're playing all the way through. So with that sum of money, and I think it would be nice to see an upgrade to MCP with respect to lights. So, I can provide more thorough content and details via email for everyone. Some of the talking points that our board members have come up with for all of you to consider as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we have liaison comments and committee reports. We'll start down here. Eli kind of already gave his.
Yeah, right. The pension committee, of course, Chris gave the update, so nothing.
Right, nothing.
to add.
Some good news on that one, too. Jamie?
Planning Commission met last month. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. I was in DC. Next Planning Commission meeting is on the 11th of this month.
The foundation meeting, the next one is February 17th. It's a Monday at 8:30 a.m. And the next meeting of Medic 1 will be on the 20th at 7 o'clock.
Jason?
The library will meet on February 20th. I will say, I'd like to congratulate, they hired a new director, Kat Nadig, and she's been an employee there dealing with the teenage age group for some time. So congratulations, and we welcome her to her new role.
Fantastic, yeah, congratulations to her. Okay, I guess me, Parks and Recreation, we meet next Tuesday, and then we have something on the agenda here regarding that later, and as far as members of the commission, but we'll get into that then. Move on, under workshop items, administration, nothing. Under engineering, the Franklin Regional School District site work and post-occupancy traffic study bond release. Mike?
Yes, that's correct. So this is an item upon completion of the new school building. The developer's agreement required a post-occupancy traffic study to assess some of the traffic, the potential concerns over there on Crowfoot Road or coming off of Sardis. As the developer's agreement required, the municipality is holding security in the amount of $2.3 million in bond funding, in a bond surety, following the study that had to be completed. The study was done in December of '23, and we just got the results of the study back now. The study was conducted by Trans Associates. The study does not require any significant changes to the roadway over there off of Crowfoot or off of Sardis Road. Some of the things that were in consideration were potentially adding in turning lanes, traffic signals, stop signage, a roundabout at the area below Murray Woods as it goes into the school there. The study concluded that none of those requirements were necessary. The only item that the study called for was some on-site queuing issues that needed to be addressed. So getting the cars that are on the site to kind of prevent from backlogging onto the roadway. The school has taken steps to remediate that issue. And so at this point, the school has asked for council to consider releasing that bond in the amount of the $2.3 million. Now, I've been working with staff to try to get to the bottom of whether there are any outstanding issues that are going on over there beyond what the study called for, and just make sure that we are confident that this is an item that's ready for council to make a decision on. So at this point, it's listed as a workshop item only to kind of present the topic to council, make everybody aware that the request did come in from the school district to release that security, and to, I guess, prepare for any questions we may have for the school district or to address any potential concerns that the council may have. So it is listed as a discussion item for this evening, simply to make council aware of that request and to address or field any questions from council and kind of sift through that internally with staff, and then be able to bring this back to council for a vote when there is when council is ready to make that decision. So at this point, in the Dropbox, council has access to the study itself. It's over 100-some pages long, but the heart of the study is contained in the first 10 or 12 pages, where it explains the reasoning behind not requiring any modifications to the roadway, and not requiring any additional improvements according to PennDOT standards. So that is in council's Dropbox, as well as a the developer's agreement itself, so you can see what is required. But again, the municipality is holding the surety for $2.3 million. The school is asking for the release of that. Staff is currently working to ensure that everything is done according to the study, and that the study carries the weight that it states, and that the traffic modifications aren't required. So that's where we stand right now, and I guess I open up for discussion from council if there are any questions or any other feedback as we sift through this, letting council know that this will probably become an agenda item in the near future, whether it's the next meeting or sometime in early March.
Mike, do we have any community members that have contacted us with concerns that they've had that outside, the study happening, but?
That's right. Yes, that's a good question. I mean, we have had community members contact the municipality over the last couple years. They've contacted both the administrative side as well as the police department. Typically, the issues that we were having relate to the traffic backing up onto the roadway, whether it be on Sardis or even on Crowfoot. When those instances do occur, we've contacted the school and worked through that. And again, that's where the on-site adjustments are required through this study, and the school has taken some of those steps. We haven't received many calls or any calls this year. If we have, they've been logged, but nothing too problematic where it's kind of resonating. Certainly, obviously being in the building daily, we do see some issues with the vehicles backing up onto the roadway, but typically it is very temporary in nature. It only lasts for a few minutes at the, I guess the most peak volume that you can find there at the school. But by and large, the issues, they don't linger and things clear up pretty quickly. So we have had calls over the years, but most of the issues have been worked through, and the school has adjusted the way the cars queue on the lot, in the parking lots themselves, and I think that's alleviated most of the concerns.
Yeah, I think at the beginning it was rough, but they definitely adjusted. I know I've noticed it just in my own personal. So, okay, great, thank you.
Certainly open to any other questions.
Any other questions from anyone else?
So at this time, as I said, I'm happy to answer any other questions. Otherwise, I would expect that this item will either be a discussion item at the next meeting or potentially ready for a vote. But the engineering department is working to contact the school and the attorney that's involved with this from the school district to ensure that everything's on the right track and that we have all the accurate information. The school also mentioned that we're holding another security pursuant to the developer's agreement. That one is not listed as a discussion item. We're still working on what exactly the funding is that's being held, where it's being held by the municipality, and what that's for. Again, some of this stuff took place prior to my time and even our engineering staff. So we're working through those items. I anticipate this will be a discussion item again sometime in the very near future, and then whenever I think it's ready for a council decision, we can put it on the agenda. But we'll make sure that we're confident that we have all the information, all the T's crossed and I's dotted before we present it to council for a vote.
Okay, great, thank you for the explanation. Just last time, any other last minute comments for that? Okay, we'll move from there. Nothing under community development, public works and parks. I don't have anything there. We'll move on to council action items. Under administration, can I get a motion for 13A?
Motion to authorize the Murraysville Police Department to advertise for the acceptance of applications to establish a police officer eligibility list.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jamie and Eli. Mike?
Yes, just briefly, the current police officer eligibility list expires in June. We have hired several officers from that list, so at this point, the police department considers that list rather exhausted. They would like to begin testing for a new round of applicants. And again, being that it expires in June of this year, it's kind of time for a new list. So this would allow us to begin the testing process and establish a new list of potential applicants for the department.
Okay. Any questions from council for Mike on that? No, I know that that's important for them to have that list for hiring, so Okay. Let's vote on that then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Can I get a motion for 13B, please?
Motion to approve the fee ordinance number 1096-24, the fee ordinance, Chapter 112-6, an ordinance amending existing fee ordinance number 1089-24.
All right, thank you, Carl and Eli. Mike?
Yes, so again, this is the fee ordinance for the municipality. It contains a number of fees that the municipality charges, everything from field use fees, pavilion rental fees, all the way down to department fees for the police or zoning and land use matters. So the ordinance was last updated in July of ¡24. The current proposed revision to the fee ordinance includes increases to the zoning hearing board matters, a fee of $100 for police blood draw testing, and then, as we've discussed at the prior few meetings, the option to increase the park and community facility rental fees, as well as the field usage fees. Again, these are items that we discussed at the last few meetings. The community park and facility rental fees, primarily the pavilion fees, would be essentially increased from $50 to $75 for residents, and from $100 to $150 for non-residents. So not too substantial of an increase there for most of the pavilion rentals. Additionally, the facility fees, there's a proposal to increase the fees, the alcohol permit fee from $50 to $100 for both the clubhouse and the community center, as well as eliminating the over 4-hour cap on the rental fee, which is right now $250 for a resident, $375 for non-resident, and changing that to an hourly fee regardless of the duration of the rental. And then lastly, modifying the clubhouse fees from $25 an hour for residents, $40 an hour for non-residents, up to $50 and $75 respectively, which would match the community center. So those are the proposed fees for the facilities. And then lastly, again, as we've discussed, adjusting the field fees. There are a variety of ways the field fees can be calculated. Essentially, staff looked at a global 20% increase on the field fees, regardless of the way it's calculated. And so that's kind of a simplified way of, instead of adjusting each of the methods of rental, whether it's a 3-month, 4-month, or 6-month or less, all of the fees would go up at the same percentage. And again, we discussed that at the prior meeting. Right now, the municipality generates roughly around $38,000 annually on field rental fees. The 20% increase takes that number to $45,000, roughly $45,000, an increase of around $7,600 year over year if it were increased 20%. So that is the proposal for the fee ordinance. As I've explained to council previously, I believe the zoning hearing board fees, the police blood draw fees do need to be updated. The option to increase pavilion rentals, facility rentals, or field fees is certainly within the discretion of council. Staff would recommend those increases, but certainly that doesn't have to occur at this time. It can be reconsidered later. The last time those fees were updated, as we previously discussed, were around 15 years ago. So it has been some time since most of those fees have been addressed. So I'm certainly open to answering any questions or fielding any concerns from council, and hoping that there is consideration to at least adopt the revised ordinance with the zoning fees and the police blood draw fees at the very least.
Shall I go first?
Sure.
That might be the longest. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't present at the last meeting if you discussed it then, so I'll put all my input in. First, I'd like to discuss the alcohol permit increase. I was here when the alcohol permit first got adopted. I feel that $50 is more than substantial considering we already have a $350 deposit just for the alcohol and then an additional $200 deposit as a resident deposit, I believe, for the facility on top of the hourly rate. That's $550, not including the hourly rate, just to rent the facility. I think that is pricing those facilities out of some of our community members' pocket to rent. So I oppose the increase in the alcohol permit. And as far as the pavilion rentals go, I would be more in line with a 25% increase, somewhere along that, as opposed to a 50% increase. I think, and I understand that it's been a while, but I think that's just a really big jump to go. I would also like to, so you did say that, to go to the fields now, to move to that currently we are seeing $38,000 annual in ROI, and if we do the increase, you said it would be 48?
It would be 45,800.
Okay, thank you. I missed writing that number down. I say, so the Excel spreadsheet that was sent to us, not including the Bear Hollow fencing, because that's a one-time cost. I wouldn't include that in like the annual expenditures. I calculated to be about $53,537. So we're still in a negative, which is fine. I think as a community we put money toward these things. But I do, in alignment with what Mrs. Kish had said, I do have a problem with when we are implementing the raise in the fees for the fields. Because their registration has already started, I feel that that's a little bit unfair to this organization where in a conversation with Mrs. Kish, she had told me that 80% of her members are residents. Is that correct? Closer to 90%. Can you speak at the microphone, please?
Your ordinance has different bands, so we are in the band that has the highest percentage. There was a small percentage of non-residents that we allowed to participate in our organization previously, and that was if they didn't have a sport available to them in their community, they could come here. Now all of the surrounding communities have those sports available, so we are nearly 100% Murrysville residents, or Franklin Regional residents.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not necessarily opposed to a field fee increase, but I would like to make myself a little bit more familiar. I tried to compare Monroeville's field fees, but that was kind of like apples and oranges. It's very hard to discern in going through our ordinance, going through Monroeville's ordinance, how exactly those fees are charged, because there's like a permit, but then there's also a field. And I'm not a baseball person, I'm a swimming person. I can tell anything you want to know about a swimming pool. Can't tell you too much about baseball fields. So it was a little bit confusing for me to try to do a comparison with neighboring communities. So I would like to see something like that for us, a comparison between maybe Penn Trafford, Monroeville, Hempfield, just so I can get a better idea as to what we are charging with those field fees to make sure that we are not way out of line. And I'm not saying that we are, but just I would like to just be reassured that we are not. So I also, a point was brought up about renovations to the field. So there have been a number of residents that have come to me and said that there have been drainage issues with the fields that they tried to correct. Someone tried to correct. I don't know the whole history behind that, but there still are issues. So I don't know what the cost on that would be and if that would help to alleviate any of the maintenance costs, that are recurring every year. If we did put money into actually fixing whatever the drainage problems are. Again, I know nothing about baseball fields, so sorry for my ignorance on that subject. I guess the last thing I would like to say is I'm fine with the other than what I had mentioned fees for zoning and the police blood draw and all that. But I would like to propose tabling the field fees and not putting in any of the other fees that I had suggested, the increases, until the fall, where we could come back and revisit. And if we did increase, they would have time to put that in their registration to cover those increases for their organization. Thank you.
I would agree with tabling the field fees since the registration is already open. Not opposed if we see the need, if we properly vet this. Thank you for the expenses. That helps.
Sure. And just, again, that's not a problem. That's why the option is available to council if you do want to table that portion of it. But just to kind of clear up some of the items that were mentioned, it is difficult to do an apples-to-apples comparison with a lot of the neighboring communities because everybody kind of does it a little bit differently. And again, even as I mentioned earlier, that's why it was a little bit tricky to do our own analysis, because the way we rent out the fees is a formula based on the amount of hours that are rented in a given time period throughout the spring or the summer. And so the best way to do the analysis from our standpoint was just to look at the overall field rentals that took place. And again, just so that it's clear to council and the community, we want to, and I've said it at the past several meetings, we want to make sure that we have a good relationship with the local sports organizations, FRA, MASA, and the others as well. It's certainly a situation where we want to work with them and not make life more difficult on them. However, we also have a responsibility to the community and those groups to maintain those fields as best we can. One of the difficulties that we face, as we've heard, is we haven't been able to maintain the fields to the level that some would like. And I think we acknowledge that has been a difficulty. That requires quite a bit of investment, which is tax dollars. At the end of the day, the overall $38,000 that we receive annually based on the current fee structure is only enough to do the absolute bare minimum that you saw in the Dropbox there with some of the expenditures. That report was put together in a very conservative way, and that's the very bare minimum with staffing to try to get some of the fields ready for the spring. That doesn't require any sort of long-term improvements, fencing, concrete, or other aspects of the park that we have to maintain in and around the fields, parking lots, things like that. And so again, in the spirit of cooperating with the local sports groups and those that use the field, we want to make sure that we're on the same page. The goal is not to try to make life more difficult for them. I recognize their registration just went out, as we heard, a few days ago. The other side of that coin is that organization is one of the only users of many of the fields in the community, and their overall cost would only be going up around $4,300 on the year for that organization specifically. So it wouldn't be putting them out even if it were implemented after their registration went out to the community members and the children. So again, the goal is not to create difficulty there. We want to work with those groups. We've talked about this for a number of years leading up to this, and unfortunately I'm left with peeling off the Band-Aid and trying to examine this topic. It's kind of been tabled for quite some time, and so I certainly have no issue with waiting another year. I just think it's important for council to be aware that this is one of those items where we're putting tax dollars into field maintenance that primarily goes to a specific group. And sometimes, that's a difficult pill to swallow when you're maintaining a field only for a specific user. And that's kind of what we have here. So I do agree with the sentiments that were presented earlier in public comment. Some of the fields do need more significant maintenance. Lighting has always been a topic that's been considered in the municipality, and I think maybe we are at the time where we heavily consider that sort of an investment. We did have money come in that is being held in reserve right now. I think that the best course of action for the municipality is probably to look at the long-term plans in the various parks, and maybe that coincides with the comprehensive plan process that we plan to begin soon. I think that one component of the comp plan probably should be an analysis of our parks and recreation programming. I think that could be a big facet of what we look at when we do the comp plan. And maybe through that, we identify capital improvements, whether it be lighting or field maintenance, some of those other things, as well as the other aspects of the park. So there's no doubt that funding is a big help for our community. It hasn't been put to use yet. The goal is to identify what the needs are, what parks need the most investment or the most improvement, and then kind of march along and address those issues. So again, as I said, this is not a hill to die on to try to generate an extra $7,600 for the municipality. But I do know that I wanted to present it to council on behalf of staff because it's been something that's lingering for some time. So again, if there's not an appetite to increase field fees or even pavilion rentals, facility rentals, again, we can get by. It's going to be subsidized one way or the other through tax dollars. The facilities will still be there available for rent. We're still going to encounter a lot of the same issues we have with some of the rentals, and we run into difficulties with cleanup and people not maintaining the facility the way that they should. The security deposit typically doesn't cover the cost of us remediating those issues. A lot of times we're refunding money because people come in, they don't clean it the way they're supposed to. So again, these are all things we've been absorbing. I don't think that waiting 6 months is going to hamper that in any way. We're still going to be right back to the drawing board here again. But I do think it's important for council to be aware that this is something that's been lingering and probably should be addressed. So if council wants to move forward with the fee ordinance and only include the police fee and the zoning hearing board fee, that makes some sense at this time. I think those fees do need to be addressed, and then the other ones, again, probably should be, and it doesn't have to be at this time. So.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, as far as the field fees, I know that there's activity, obviously. There's a spring session and a fall session. What if we just time it such that the spring session is held such that there's no increase, but there would be, if you will, an increase for the fall session? And the rationale is that in the last meeting, we did discuss this, and we did feel that it was appropriate, meaning the increases were not egregious and it made sense. Understanding what Ms. Kish had said, okay, for this case, let's just delay the increase for 3 months, 4 months, whatever, such that they're not burdened by that. Sure. And the other thing I know, when Jamie had indicated the alcohol permit, as she's described it, that does seem a bit much. So I guess what I'm saying is that what Jason said is that perhaps we should table this, but I don't think we necessarily have to say, let's wait for a whole year, because we looked at it, it made sense. There are some caveats, as have been mentioned. Let's address those. And it's also, if we can make a decision that if we say the rates go in effect, we can say, put a time on it. They won't be in effect for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever. I would rather see something like that. And rather than getting into the minutia of it right now, at the meeting, is that we address it in the next meeting or two, meaning like what's the timing, it's appropriate, and taking the input that's been given. So,
Okay. I'll give my thoughts on it. I felt like the discussion around the fees, I was comfortable with at the last meeting. I understand why they're coming, why they're needed, and what's doing. But I do also echo what Ms. Kish said, the fact that they've already opened the registration and we're into February when we're voting on this, and I don't feel like that's fair to the community. However, I do think that those fees are long due to be raised a little bit, and I think they're probably understanding of that. I think that the discussions around the field maintenance and what's needed absolutely is a huge important. I get more people reach out to me about that in the community than anything else, like the sports complexes, sports fields, the park, not as much the parks, it's more the fields and what we have here. And and it's hard, like she said, comparing it to Monroeville, that's a whole different world. I mean, they've got a massive facility up there, but also the business tax is through the roof there. So that's a complete apples to oranges type of comparison. But I do feel like that's something that I know that we've discussed in Parks and Recreation as well, that, they do need addressed in these fields in the future. And I think it's something we'll probably discuss and do. I think that probably the rankings of them, you talked about lights and about the drainage and whatnot. I think getting the fields to where they're playable would be like number one. And, lights, obviously lights and turf, things like that, those are things that are wanted down the road. But I think I didn't see when my kids played that, there were a lot of times where we get any rain at all and, they were calling off the games and practices. So hopefully we can do something about that in the future. I think Carl's idea is a good idea. I'm comfortable moving forward with the fee ordinance completely, except for I don't think it's fair for the spring sports right now. And I would guess, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, it would be FRAA and Massa are the only two spring sports that, I don't know that Massa's opened theirs up, but for discussion purposes,
They have.
we just
saw it on-
said, we're not going to implement that for the spring sports so that they have the opportunity to pass that fee on to their participants in the organization. I think.
Just one question of clarification. Are there separate registrations for the spring and the fall?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
They're totally separate, yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
that?
I just wanted to make sure that was soccer also and not just,
Yeah, I think it would be softball, baseball, and soccer would be the three that are probably have already opened their registrations for this season. So, would we be able to I mean, if council wanted to move forward with the fee ordinance, but just delaying the fees for the fields for baseball, softball, and soccer for the spring only, and then that way we wouldn't be coming back to it again.
The one other issue I would say with the alcohol permit, I think there was some good information given by Jamie on that. So
Yeah.
I'd suggest that we exclude that from the increase right now and look at that for perhaps when we make the adjustment for the fields, say in 3, 4, 5 months or whatever.
Sure, and just to be clear, because I wasn't quite sure if I kept up with the numbers, but the to 100. The other fees are a facility rental fee, which is separate. So if you don't get an alcohol permit, you're still paying the facility fee, whether you rent it out for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever it may be. There is a $350 security deposit, which is returned if there's no damage. So while folks are putting that deposit up, we're not keeping that unless there is an issue. We try our best to not keep that deposit. A lot of times what we're finding is that there are issues with people not cleaning up the way they're supposed to and not preparing the rental for the next individual. And so whenever that does occur, we keep the security deposit. Many times it doesn't cover the cost of getting in there, getting staff or a cleaning company come in and address those issues, typically on a weekend when we don't have staff at the building, things like that. So again, I just wanted to be clear so that we're on the same page. So the alcohol permit fee is only $50 right now. The proposal was to increase that to $100.
can I just make sure that I'm reading the ordinance correctly? So I think I read it that it's $30, I think this, whatever the first one's for. It's a $250 deposit without alcohol to rent.
$200 deposit.
$200 deposit, and then an additional $350 deposit if they were to get, so that's $550 in security deposit. So are you saying that sometimes $550 is not enough to cover the cleaning of the facility?
No.
That's disturbing.
No, correct. So the issue, the way that this was designed, I think because the alcohol came separate from the original rental requirements, when they allowed alcohol, they wanted to have a security measure in place for that. And so what happens is if we have an issue with somebody not cleaning the facility, damaging something, we only hold the rental deposit. But if we have an issue with alcohol, where they don't cleanup, broken bottles, things like that, that relate specifically to the consumption of alcohol, then that's where that security deposit comes into play. So typically what we're finding, just so that I'm clear, is usually the issue relates to the rental itself. Folks will come in. There are occasions where they don't clean the facility properly, they leave the kitchen a mess, or they spill, they don't prepare it for the next person. Because again, part of the requirements are that they return it back to the condition that it was in, because sometimes we have multiple rentals on a weekend. So if you come into the community center or even the clubhouse, and there's a morning rental, the expectation is, and it's laid out in the agreement, that those folks will put it back to the condition it was in when the rental started, because somebody's coming in there in the evening to maybe rent it out for an evening event. And so typically what will happen is that's the security deposit that we hold, is that $200 security deposit. And many times that doesn't really cover the cost of either the repair or having Public Works come out to unclog a toilet, or to clean a facility, or to address some of the issues that are taking place. So there are a variety of issues that we run into. Not all of them relate to damage. Sometimes we get called out because they can't get the thermostat to work, and that's no fault of their own, and that creates an additional cost to us as well. So I think what we've learned is that overall we're kind of in the business of being a tenant, a renter, a rental company, and we're not really suited for that because we don't have staff on the weekend. So the costs do increase when we have to send Public Works crew out and two call-outs and things like that, or we have to get somebody over there to clean. One of the directors will come. So I just want to be clear with that. We don't keep the full $550. If the issue does not relate to alcohol or the alcohol consumption on the premises, the alcohol security deposit is returned. But it's the $200 rental deposit that would then be held. The only time we keep the alcohol deposit if it's directly related to alcohol consumption, and that's typically unusual. But I think the idea of putting that safeguard in place was because when alcohol was approved, again, after we've been renting the facility for a number of years, I think there was a little bit of hesitancy and reluctancy of what that may bring, what's going to happen if we allow alcohol. Are people going to be spilling alcohol over the carpet at the community center, things like that? Or
That's where we brought the $350.
And so that's where that came in. So it kind of, because they came in at separate times, the safeguard, I think for council at that time was probably, well, if we're going to allow alcohol, we better make sure we cover our bases. So I say that not to kind of justify, but that's why they kind of came in piecemeal. So it does look like a large deposit, but usually we're not holding the alcohol deposit.
Yeah, I remember those discussions too, and yeah, I agree. That's why it was. It was like we didn't know, we hadn't gone there yet, and it was like,
I think when we hadn't gone down that path, we kind of just weren't sure really what to expect. But the alcohol doesn't seem to be the issue.
Now I'm going to ask the question,
Sure.
the million-dollar question. Now that we have had several years where we're doing this and we're not seeing a huge problem, I guess, can we lower that deposit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that could be considered. Maybe what we do is implement an overall security deposit. And that's something that maybe staff could look into and just have one single deposit. And if there's an issue with the rental or alcohol consumption or anything in between, then we make a decision on whether to hold some or a portion of that deposit or all of it, depending on the nature of the issue. And that's something that staff can go back and look at. I can talk with the recreation department, who would know a bit more about the issues that we're having. But I know far too many times in the few short years I've been here, we're having to make decisions about do we withhold funds? How much do we withhold? How do we address this? And again, it has come back to in the past, well, we have this large deposit, but technically the issue is not related to alcohol. We shouldn't be we shouldn't be withholding that, and we don't. So the $200 may not cover the issue that we address. So that's a good question, and I think maybe what we look to do is consolidate that and put in a flat security deposit regardless of alcohol consumption or the alcohol permit. And maybe that's something we come back to council with and address that. And that could go in conjunction with the potential field fees and things like that.
So for what we're discussing here for the adoption of the ordinance, the deposits have no bearing. Like those are what they are right now. She's saying that she thinks maybe they're too high. I understand that, but there's no increase right now in this ordinance that we're looking at deposits, just on the alcohol permit.
On the permit, yes.
It would go from
50
$50 to $100.
And again, that's something that
Right.
you could eliminate just as we're discussing the field fees.
I mean, I'm comfortable with all of the fees that we discussed at the last meeting. I mean, I would like to hear from everyone else on what their thoughts are. I'm fine with it. I definitely agree that the spring ball for soccer and softball and baseball, that's not fair, and I'd like to implement the ordinance and implement the fee increases, field and other fee increases, but not for the spring
I
season.
think that's probably the consensus I'm gathering from council, so
So-
I would eliminate that from
Anyone else
consideration.
want
I agree.
to throw their
I agree.
That's
two cents
fine.
in?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So do we want to vote, do we want to change the vote to include that we're not going to do the fees? We're going to keep the fee ordinance as is, except for the spring ball fees? Is that how we would want to word that?
Yeah, you can do it that way if you'd like, yes, I mean, that's up to.
Are you guys comfortable with that?
I am a little confused as to how this is proceeding, because we have the motion on the floor. I'm not sure exactly what the motion is being changed to.
That's right. The motion that's on the floor is to adopt the fee ordinance in its entirety as presented.
Yeah, I think we need to.
So that motion has to be called to a vote and be denied. And then there'll have to be a second motion that is something along the line, I move to adopt the fee ordinance as presented, accepting that the registration fee for the use of the facilities will be postponed until following the spring sports events.
The field fees?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So you're saying we would have to vote on what's on the table right now?
Which is going to be to deny it,
Vote to deny it?
and a new motion needs to be made.
Is that what we want to do, guys? Okay.
I think you should just make clear so that I know, there are essentially three items at play. We eliminate the field fees. That sounds like there's a consensus there. The other two items.
Excuse me, Mike, are you eliminating it or just postponing it?
Sorry, well, postponing it, yes.
Postponing it till after the spring, not to include the spring session. Yeah.
So if I'm understanding, then you're saying just to not implement that fee until a later time?
Yeah, that we would implement that fee, but we would exclude the spring ball session for,
I think we need a hard date on that. because
like
it's going
July
in an
1st.
ordinance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, July or June 1st is actually what I was thinking, Eli.
yeah, okay. I'm good.
Okay.
I agree.
So we could amend it, again, if that's the decision of council, that fee would go into effect on June 1st. The other two items that are of consideration are the facility rental fees and then also the pavilion rental fees. So those are the two other items. Again, the pavilion fees were going from 50 and 75 to 100, 150 for all the pavilion rentals. And then the facility fees, as I mentioned, the alcohol permit, and then the clubhouse fees would then mirror the community center fee. So again, whether council wants to do that or not, but I think you want to make it clear in the motion so that I know what to include in the final ordinance.
Well, wouldn't it be just include everything that's in the ordinance today with the exception that implementation of the field fees increase effective June 1st?
That's what I think.
That is,
certainly do it that
that's what I think too.
July.
But
Or July 1st.
Whatever,
Whatever,
yeah.
July 1st.
Okay.
Is fine. Are we comfortable with that?
I'm not comfortable with the, I mean, I'm just going to vote
Vote
no
no,
because
yeah,
I am
right.
not comfortable with the 50% increase
understand
in the pavilion fees.
Okay. Okay. So,
You have to call
we're
the, you
going
have
to
to call
vote on
the,
this, on the first motion that's on the table, which is the adoption of ordinance number 1096-24, the ordinance fee. All in favor? All opposed?
Nay.
Okay. So Jason, can I ask for a motion?
I'll do it, I'll do
Yeah,
it.
okay.
A motion to approve fee ordinance number 1096-24, the fee ordinance, chapter 112-6, an ordinance amending the existing fee ordinance number 89-24 with the implementation of the field fees effective July 1st, 2025.
Second the motion.
Yeah, accepting that the implementation of the field fees would be postponed until July 1 of '25.
Yeah.
So we have Eli, the motion, Carl is the second. All right, we're going to vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that fee ordinance is adopted as it was.
Maybe just one comment at the end. I really appreciate the comment about field improvements. I mean, and the fact that the planning is going to begin later this year. Someone that always wanted lighting for my own sons to enjoy, we didn't never have it. So hopefully that kind of discussion comes into fruition later. Yeah.
It's an important thing to the community, I know.
Yeah.
The sports fields is huge. Okay, we're going to move on to 13C. Can I get a motion for 13C?
I'd like to make a motion to advertise ordinance number 1098-25, increasing the Parks and Recreation Commission to 9 members.
Second.
Thank you, Jason and Jamie. Mike?
Just pretty straightforward. The Rec Commission currently has a 7-member board. They have quite a few individuals that expressed interest in being on the board, but they've also had some difficulty in recent months getting a quorum, so increasing the number seems like it will be a benefit to the overall commission. So this would allow them to have a couple more members to attend meetings and vote.
Right. I can comment on this, so I've been involved in this. We had a lot of issues in the past months of just not having enough people at meetings to be able to have a quorum and do that, as well as, there's so many different events and it's hard to get volunteers to help with that. So the increase of this from 7 to 9. So we would be keeping, the liaison position for council is what it is, a liaison position. The school board does have a voting member on there, and we're going to add just 2 more general members would be added to this to make it up. They can do as many as 9. We would move it to 9. So I think it'd be very helpful for the Parks and Recreation Commission.
And if I may add, just so that it kind of aligns and makes some sense, the one question could be, well, if you can't get a quorum out of 7, what makes you think you'll get the quorum out of 9? But I think the one thing we've identified is that there are several folks that have been involved with the Rec Commission but are not official members, so they can attend meetings. They have been attending meetings but haven't had the ability to vote.
Right.
And we've also had, again, a lapse with the school board membership, which we've now filled. So I think that increasing the membership to 9, we will have quorums now, and we will have a good ratio of members that are able to attend events and also attend the meetings as well. So
I agree. Yep.
I do have, just as a comment, and maybe it's not time now in our action items, but would it make any sense for the various boards and commissions that if you miss 4 or more or 5 or more, then you are no longer on the board? Something along those, because I know I was the liaison to the Environmental Advisory Commission 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it was. And I know one member was there on the board and never attended. It was just, it didn't make any sense. He should have been taking it off, which would allow someone else that would happen to be a male to get on. But is this something for a workshop discussion, or
And I think
we're going to
that's,
leave this alone?
but that's also, we read up those when their term's up, correct?
we do.
That
Right.
gives them the opportunity.
We do, and to address
Somebody brought
that
that.
directly, I think the best way to answer that is, one, I would want to see the ordinances for each of the various boards, because they may have that language written into the ordinance. Sometimes that does exist. And the other thing I can say is that, at least as far as I'm aware of, the only issue we've really had is with the Rec Commission, only in the recent months. But otherwise, I believe that attendance is up for all the different boards. So that, I would say that that's probably something that could be a discussion item once we maybe look into that and also find out if the boards are having some difficulty. And certainly you can amend the ordinances for each of these various groups if need be. But it doesn't seem like it's something that's too pressing right now, but we could look into it and make sure of it and then report back.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions about this from council? All right. For 13C, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Community development, nothing. Engineering, nothing. Public works and parks.
I'd like to make a motion to advertise for bids of mowing municipal green spaces.
Second.
Thank you, Jason and Jamie. I believe we're going to go over to Bill. And Bill, I just want to say, please, kudos to your guys. You guys had a hell of a December and January of cold weather here, and you guys did a great job.
Thank you, much appreciated. Those, quite a few younger guys have stepped up on the crew now, and actually I got a whole younger crew that's doing it. They're doing phenomenal. It's been tough. It's been a normal winter that we had years ago that we don't remember anymore. So they're getting a lot of experience. Hopefully they don't get a whole lot tonight here.
I don't know.
Ice storms, you usually have an incident where you carry that for the rest of your career. I have a couple, but like I said, hopefully all works well. And again, thank you very much for the kudos.
Yes.
This here is a one-year contract with 3-year pricing. What we do is a couple of the properties that we can't get to with the mowing crew, Manorfield Court, where the state took over the Wyden 22. We have a piece down in Haymaker, the Haymaker Park, if you will, and a piece in Somerville that we just don't have the time to get to. We send this contract out for this. So I'm asking for your gracious to send me out of here to advertise.
Any questions for Bill from council? Pretty straightforward. We voted on
Just
this.
a nit, it says, consider authorization to advertise prices. I think we're going to advertise tasks, right, not prices.
Yes, I'm actually going out for a bid for a RFP.
Okay,
for-
it's a nit point, but
All right. Yeah. Any questions other than that on this? Okay. Let's go to vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Move on to 16B under Public Works and Parks. Can I get a motion?
Motion to advertise for bid, project number DPW 4-25, landscaping at Administration Building Community Center, Route 22, medians, jug handles, and streetscape.
second the motion.
Thank you, Jamie and Carl, and we're back to Bill.
Okay, again, another one-year contract with 3-year pricing. This one's a little more complicated. What we've done a few years back is to lump together jug handles, the Route 22 project, mowing and landscaping at the municipal building and community center, and streetscape, a little bit of tree trimming, pulling weeds along the a couple planters we have down there. So this one here is a little more involved. So it, of course, it last year terminated at 51,000.
All right. Any questions from council on this?
Bill, this is PennDOT road, but we own the sort of maintenance of these jug
Yes.
handles and so forth. That's,
Through whenever the Route 22 project came to be, Murraysville was very instrumental about putting the planters in the middle of the road.
okay.
And we got that done. And also the Murraysville sign was also included. And the one out towards Delmont too, we were going to add that to our list this year, spruce that up a little bit.
I see.
Yes, we're on it's a state road, but the Murraysville back in the day asked for those planners, and PennDOT agreed, so now we're going to take care of that.
I got you. Okay, great, thanks.
And I said you can have them, but you gotta plan them.
Well, the jug handles, just a little bit of history too. They, at one time, were given out to the different community groups. And through some of these groups are getting older, the women's group, that kind of thing, they're just too much to handle. So we've taken, we're doing Braun Avenue, Brent Hoover Cutoff, and Harrison City Road. The municipality's going to pick those ones up, and just to try to defray this 51,000. When I look at that number, I kind of shake a little bit too. So we're going to continue to pick up a few of those jug handles, and we're leaving 2 of them on here, plus the Murraysville signs.
Okay. All right, any last minute questions for Bill on that? Okay, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Nothing in old business, any new business? No?
I'm not sure if this is new business or.
New business.
Don't be scared. While we were talking about projects that we were looking at, I would like to put it out there. I know I have said stuff to some people on council and to Michael in the past. Our community has no pavilion that really accommodates sports organizations with their families, or like a class reunion or a anniversary or anything like that. So if we're looking in the future to put something in at one of the parks, I would like for us to seriously consider something like that, maybe with a kitchen facility attached, because a lot of the orgs, they go to Monroeville Community Park. That's where all of our Murraysville sports orgs are going to have their outside venue. So just putting that out there as a suggestion.
Sure.
That's all.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, with the
Yeah.
kitchen and the
Yeah,
ability to
just
make
the whole,
food and
yeah, I
stuff.
mean, yeah,
All right,
just a suggestion.
well, we'll keep that in mind for future discussion.
Well, Sardis has a kitchen. Sardis Park.
I sort of
I
stuff.
mean, they could accommodate that.
And it's all new up there, too.
How many people do they accommodate?
You would know, you held an event there.
Sardis community, no, you're talking about the fire hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not a community park. I mean, that's not something
Okay.
that like we would rent
it's a
out
pavilion.
and be,
Yeah, that's the fire
be a
department.
part of. I'm talking about an outdoor type venue for the summer, so.
All right, for future discussion, I think we can definitely talk about that. Nothing, no executive session, any action items?
If I may stop you, Mac, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if Wes, if you think we should have a brief executive session to give an update on some legal matters. That's up to you if you'd like.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Maybe at the next meeting.
sure. Okay.
All right, so no executive session, action items, nothing. One more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second the motion.
All right, thank you, Jamie and Carl. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay.